I am still on my holiday party food kick. So this week I've selected 3 recipes from cheese balls. And as you may have guessed, they are cheese balls. This is a modern cookbook. This is from 2018, but let's face it, cheese balls are a very retro party snack. I remember them at every single holiday party I went to growing up. Now, what I was able to find about cheese balls was that they rose in popularity in the 1940s, and by the 1980s, they were falling out of fashion. I was born in the 1980s, and they definitely never fell out of fashion with me. I am going to start with this ranch and bacon cheese ball. This one has the fewest ingredients and it seems pretty simple. I do like to let cheese balls, when I make them, I like to let them sit in the fridge for at least a few hours, if not overnight. So it starts with cooking up some bacon. It says 12 ounces, approximately 12 slices of uncooked bacon that you need to cook until it's crisp and then drain. I already did that, so that's kind of off to the side right now. So now we need 8 ounces of room temperature cream cheese. And I have 2 ounces of smoked Gouda that I shredded fairly fine. I like, when I'm doing the cheese ball, I like to shred the cheese very fine so it kind of like mixes really well. The ranch as well. So I have 3 tablespoons of ranch dressing. And I need to get out my electric mixer. I can't believe I forgot. So I'm gonna start by mixing these 3 ingredients. I would say that is pretty well mixed. One of the things I think I'm gonna like about this cookbook is that the cheese balls are a little bit on the smaller side. So this is an 8-ounce package of cream cheese. I have seen many recipes for cheese balls that take double that. I've seen one that takes quadruple the cream cheese to make a very large cheese ball. I kind of like the idea of making a few different ones to try, like making smaller quantities of multiple, different flavored cheese balls to have at a party. A cheese ball flight, maybe. Finally, I have what is supposed to be chives. My store was out of chives. I just got green onions and I chopped them very fine. Before you add the green onions or the chives to your cheese mixture, you're supposed to take 2 tablespoons out, which I already did. There's gonna be some that have to go on the outside. So this is 1/3 of a cup less 2 tablespoons. I feel like these are very, classic flavors. They all go together well. So I need to mix that at low speed. We are all mixed for now. The bacon doesn't actually go inside the cheese ball. It is on the outside. You'll roll this in the bacon when it's all, done setting up and everything. And I have to roll this mixture into a ball now. There are different shapes that you can make your cheese balls. As you will see in the upcoming recipes, this one's just gonna be, a traditional round kind of ball. So I have a piece of plastic wrap, cling film, whatever you want to call it. People have different ways they like to do this. This is actually the way I do it, and it's the same. It's the same in the book. You just gather your mixture in the middle here. Good spatula. You need one in the kitchen. At least one. I have a lot, and I use all of them. And then you just kind of gather it up in the corners. Kind of like, you're making a present or something. You can twist the top. You can use your hands to shape it. Make it what you want to make it. I made a pumpkin-shaped cheese ball. I think it was last year, and that was a lot of fun. I'll link that. It is a Halloween video, but, pumpkins can be at Christmas too, right? Just kind of make it into what you want to make it into, and keep in mind, you're going to roll this in stuff, so these little creases and stuff, they don't really matter that much. But you do want to get it kind of tight. It says to refrigerate this at least 30 minutes. We'll see how long I let it go. I might even let this go overnight. We'll see how much time I have putting together the other cheese balls. Now this next cheese ball is spinach and artichoke flavored. There is a photo. I chose this because I do love a classic spinach artichoke dip. But this recipe is a little bit more involved. It has more ingredients. You actually do need to cook some things on the stove. To begin, I am heating a couple of tablespoons of olive oil. And to that oil, I'm going to add 3 cloves of garlic. I think that's a very nice amount. I think you can add more if you want, but what a good start. A lot of recipes start with a lot less garlic. I had pretty large garlic cloves, so I am gonna stick with the 3 cloves here. And you're just gonna cook that for 30 seconds. You don't want it to burn. You just wanna kind of get it started. Very fragrant. I have some jarred and drained artichoke hearts that I have coarsely chopped. I actually really love to keep jarred artichoke hearts in my pantry because I can throw together a really easy dip with them, or sometimes they're nice on a cold salad or in a pasta salad even. So kind of an unusual staple that I like to have. And then I have some frozen chopped spinach that I have thawed and drained. Okay, so you just let that cook for 2 to 3 minutes. And now I need to lower the heat and add a couple of more ingredients. 1/3 cup of sour cream and a tablespoon of grated Parmesan cheese. I need to let this mixture kind of heat through. How long does it say? It says 2 to 3 minutes. Then I need to remove it from the heat and then set it aside to cool. But while this is cooling, I actually have another step to work on here on the stove. While the spinach mixture is cooling, I'm going to toast my breadcrumbs. So I washed and dried this same skillet. I'm heating a tablespoon of olive oil. And I have 1 cup of fine dry breadcrumbs here. Whoops, you know, I'm just throwing them around. And I need to let these cook over low heat until they are a little bit browned and toasty, it says, for about 5 minutes. So this is what the crumbs look like after about 5 minutes of toasting. You can smell them. So it's kind of how you know what you're doing is working. And they get a little brown. You want to keep them moving a little bit, which mostly you just want to keep a sharp eye on them. They can burn very quickly. And I'm going to make a call here because I'm noticing in this recipe, there's not a lot of like extra seasoning. I think this would be really nice with like a teaspoon of Italian seasoning or maybe just basil, tarragon, something like that. A lot of times I do follow these recipes pretty closely, but I'm just, you know what, I want to give myself the gift of seasoning this Christmas. And I just think that it would add a nice touch to these crumbs. This crumb mixture, once I add the cheese, this is what's going to go on the outside of your cheese balls. Speaking of cheese, I have 1/3 cup of finely grated Parm. This is why you want to take the crumbs off of the heat. You don't want it to melt. So I'm just going to lightly stir that together. I usually find the finely grated real Parm like in the deli section. Okay, so you can see that looks beautiful. It says to put the crumbs on a shallow rimmed plate. I have this bowl, and that's just gonna make it easier to like roll your cheese balls. We're gonna do something a little different when it comes time to form the mixture. You can see why I was like, this cheese ball is a little bit more involved, takes a few more steps. This is the spinach artichoke mixture from earlier. It is nice and cool now. And I am making another seasoning call here. I think it's gonna need salt. I tasted just like a tiny bit of this mixture before I add the cream cheese, and I've added salt. So I'm adding some garlic salt to this. Do it if you want, don't do it if you don't want. It's our little Christmas secret. And I'm also gonna add 8 ounces of softened, like room temperature cream cheese. I just need to mix all this together. Look at that. So our mixture, all nice, all mixed up. Before I form this into mini cheese balls, I need to let this set up in the fridge for just a little bit. So I'm gonna cover it, put it in there for maybe, I don't know, maybe an hour or so, and kind of see where we're at. So my 3rd cheese ball is probably the most different, I would say, and that is a trail mix cheese ball. And I wanted to try this partially because, well, it's very different, but it's kind of got a sweet thing going on too, but you can adjust exactly what you put in it and make it as sweet or not as sweet as you want. I like the idea of having like dried fruit and nuts and different things. So I'm gonna start with 12 ounces of softened cream cheese. 1.5 standard, what is now standard packages. Usually cream cheese will come in 8-ounce blocks like this. Once upon a time, the 3-ounce size was very common. Not so much as, you know, I don't see it very much anymore. To that, I need to add 2 ounces of honey. Look at this. I just happen to have this very cute 2-ounce jar of honey. I'm like, heck yeah. Also, look at this very interesting tiny spatula. I told you I have a lot of spatulas for all occasions. I'm gonna mix that together. I've got my honey and my cream cheese mixed together. That sounds like I could stop here, use this as a spread. I'd be happy with that. But now I have to add my mix-ins. It gave a lot of good suggestions. You are supposed to use about 1 cup of diced dried fruit like cranberries, blueberries, raisins, apricots. I went with a mix of dried cranberries and dried cherries because I always have dried cherries on hand. I buy a big bag at Costco and they are delicious. So I just kind of chopped them as finely as I could. And you're just supposed to fold these in with your spatula. My second mix-in is going to be my sweet mix-in. The suggestions given are chocolate chips, coconut flakes, Chex, or candied ginger. The Chex kind of had me intrigued and made me think of granola. I have a little bit of granola I just want to use up. So this is 1/4 cup of cinnamon granola. I like the idea of like a crunchy small cereal in here. I think it could be interesting. I don't know, maybe it'll get soggy. I did also think about chocolate chips. That's kind of what I was gonna go with at first. And I was like, I don't know if I want it that sweet. I think I kind of want it a little sweet, but not too sweet. Honestly, this just looks good by itself. Once I have this completely combined, I'm gonna shape it. I think I'm gonna try to go with like a log shape, just to try something different. We're all mixed. We're all mixed. And I did consult the section of the book that talks about different ways to form your cheese balls. In the instructions for the cheese logs, it does say to start from like a ball shape. So that's what I'm gonna do. We're gonna start from there and let it set up. And actually, I have decided that I'm gonna let all 3 of these set up overnight. I think it's just gonna work better. I don't wanna rush things. I wanna be in a good place for these cheese balls. We're gonna do the same thing that I did with the bacon and ranch cheese ball and just kind of like start with a big piece of cling film plastic wrap, whatever you call it where you live, and form it. I'm being less careful here on like exactly how I shape it because I'm gonna let this set up and then I'm gonna form it into a log tomorrow. All of the toppings that I've already prepared so far can be put in the refrigerator or set aside for a certain amount of time. So we're gonna come back to this tomorrow. Great. I am relaxed, I'm refreshed, I am ready for cheese balls. We don't have a lot to do here. Most of it is just with the ranch and bacon, coating it in bacon. You're supposed to take this out of the refrigerator. It says for 30 minutes to sort of let it soften before you put the stuff on the outside. I didn't quite go 30 minutes, so we'll see if it works. This is a really nice size though. I think this is kind of perfect. You know, even if you're having a bigger cheese ball, you might even want to like split that recipe up into this size. I have my cooked bacon here that I have chopped into tiny little pieces. And then I have my reserved green onions here because my store didn't have chives. So we do the best with what we have. And I'm supposed to mix these 2 things together. They look very festive. Just to make this like easier on myself, I'm gonna spread this out on a plate. The fun part. If you've got any weird creases or anything on your cheese ball from the plastic wrap, doesn't matter because you're gonna plop it right into whatever you're coating the cheese ball in this case, bacon. Here we go. Press it in there. And this is where the plate really comes in handy. You know, I could have tried to use this tiny little bowl. I just don't think I would have had a lot of space to work in. And let it fall away. And you want to make sure you get the sides too. Just kind of take your time. Make sure that it is well coated. I left this out for like 15 minutes. That was fine. I don't know that you need to do a full 30. Behold. What a thing of beauty. I am incredibly pleased with how this turned out. It has a very classic look to it. I had to have the Ritz crackers. That's like the vehicle for a classic cheese ball. I included a little spreader here. It might not focus. It actually says Hickory Farms of Ohio on it. I think I bought this in the 90s at a weird junk store. And I have like had this since I was a teenager and I've just carried it every place that I've moved. Hickory Farms, if you don't know, they sell like edible gift boxes and things, summer sausage. And they actually had a permanent store, not super far from where I grew up. I think it's, oh no, I know it's gone now because the whole mall is gone. You can still buy stuff from them and have gift boxes sent to people. I can't wait to try this. Yeah, it's soft enough. It said you're supposed to let it sit 30 minutes before you add the coating and then another 30 minutes before you serve it. I mean, it's probably only been 30 minutes total for both things and it's perfectly fine. It's fairly soft. You do want it to come to room temperature a little bit so it's kind of easy to cut and spread. I'm so excited. Christmas can start. This is delicious. Didn't have extra seasoning in it because frankly it doesn't need it. The bacon's very salty. The choice of cheese, the smoked Gouda, I think goes perfectly in this. It's salty and smoky and cheesy and creamy. And the buttery Ritz crackers, like this is essential. Club crackers would also be acceptable, but I think the Ritz crackers are my #1 for this. A little bit of a different take on the classic like dried beef cheese ball that I'm very familiar with from my vintage cookbooks. Your guests are gonna be very happy if you serve this at your holiday party. So here's where I left off on my spinach and artichoke cheese balls. Let this sit in the fridge covered overnight. I'd already prepared my like crumb coating for this. So I have a little bit of an assembly line here. I'm going to make these into mini cheese balls. That's what it shows in the picture. And I do like to do that sometimes. I actually made a video years ago where I made mini cheese balls from Dollar Tree ingredients. I'll link that video in the description. If you've never seen it, it is an older one, so there's a good chance. So I have my little mini scoop here. I've let this sit for a few minutes. So sometimes it helps to have damp hands. I'm actually gonna wet my hands a little bit to do this. I'm gonna like roll and then drop in the crumbs. These are pretty small. You don't want them to be too big, of course, because these are like individual bites. So I'm gonna keep rolling these and then I'm gonna roll them in the crumbs. Oh, they're so cute. You know, I have one more thing that I would like to add to these actually. I have pretzel sticks and I think that could be a fun way to like pick them up. Yeah, because they stick right in there, right? Like that. So what I'm thinking, because when I've done this before, if you stick pretzel sticks in all of them and then refrigerate them, they get soggy. So before serving, I would say, if you're gonna do something like this, just put a few of the sticks like in the cheese balls, just a few, and then have additional like sticks on the side for people to grab and like stab. I think these are very cute. I did put pretzel sticks in all of them just for the thumbnail. Probably wouldn't do that if I were actually serving these. They are small enough that you can just like pick them up and like eat them, but you could also, you know, pick some up and then spread them on a cracker. So you can just pick it up. Actually, I brought in a little spreader, but I think, yeah, you can use the pretzel stick to do that too. This is a gigantic cracker. Okay. Very garlicky, which I like. If you don't like garlic, I would cut back a little. You might remember I did add some garlic salt to this. I mean, there's fresh garlic in there. I wanted it to be a little bit saltier because there was no additional seasoning in there. I think it does need the salt. If you don't want to do garlic salt, do just like regular salt, seasoned salt, something like that. It did need some additional seasoning. I tasted part of the mixture and just to make sure. Usually when I think of spinach and artichoke, I think of a dip, but I think they make a great cheese ball. And I think the little tiny ones are just so much fun for a party. Finally, I'm gonna be finishing up my trail mix cheese ball. And I'm looking at this, I wanna roll this into a log, and I'm looking at this, and there's a lot there. This is 12 ounces of cream cheese. It was a little bit larger than the other cheese balls. I think I'm gonna cut this in half. I think I'm gonna make two like smaller ones, you know? I'm gonna give it away to, I'm giving a lot of this away to someone. My household cannot eat 3 cheese balls. If we tried really hard, maybe. Garnish half of it now, and I'll wrap the rest up and garnish the other half later. So I have a long piece of clean plastic wrap here on my counter. It's hard to see. I'm gonna put some of my toasted pecans on here. The recipe ingredients state 1 cup approximately of toasted nuts. It says seeds, almonds, pepitas, whatever. I'm using pecans because I thought cranberry, cherry, pecan, like what a good combination. The book also gives you instructions on how to toast nuts in the oven. I personally prefer to do this on the top of the stove because you got to keep it moving anyway. Chop up the nuts that you want to toast and then spread them out in a single layer in a skillet over medium heat. You know, just stir them around. This should only take you about 5, maybe 5 to 7 minutes. You'll start to smell them and you don't want them to burn. Keep them moving, gently kind of stir them as you go. And then you can pour them onto a plate to cool because you want these to cool completely before you do anything with the cheese ball. Let's start there. I'm just gonna put a layer here. I think I'm gonna put like a little bit more around the edges. So the idea here is you're making like a little bed of nuts and you want it to be wider. So then you kind of wrap a little bit of it around. So I'm actually just gonna like cut pieces. Oh, this looks really cool on the inside. Woo! I actually really like how that looks. I did just dampen my hands a bit. I'm gonna put another piece like right next to it. Push them together. I think that's a pretty good size. So you can put some more of the chopped nuts on top too and kind of pat them. Start picking it up and like pressing it. Good argument for making it a little smaller, then it's easier. You know, if I had one this long, it'd be really hard to manage all of this. And don't forget the ends too. I have a plate in mind to use this with, so I'm kind of like eyeing my plate over there to see what size it is. Having too much fun with this. Okay, and so then you just want to like kind of pretty tightly wrap this. And I'm just gonna let this sit in the fridge for a little while, maybe like 20 to 30 minutes, just to firm up again. I probably should have used a bigger plate, but you can see what I was kind of going for here. The book suggests serving this with like a wheat cracker. So I have these kind. I was maybe thinking maybe graham crackers, vanilla wafers, that might be too sweet. I'm not sure yet. I only needed to leave this back in the fridge for like 20 minutes, and it's a good temperature for serving. Yeah, the toasted pecans are really good on this. I think that was a good choice for the combination of other things that I used. It is sweet, but it's not like overly sweet. It's just very pleasant. I think you could serve this sort of like alongside any other appetizer kind of spread. Also maybe kind of like a desserty little cheese plate kind of thing. Really good flavor. I love the cranberries and the cherries, but you can use whatever dried fruit that you prefer. There's this dip that you can get at Aldi, and it's cranberry and jalapeno. It's kind of what this reminds me of. So I think I would love to add a little bit of jalapeno to this mixture. One thing I'm not noticing, at least in this first bite, maybe I'll try a little more. I'm not noticing that granola, so I'm wondering if it just kind of like absorbed. So, you know, maybe if you want to go sweeter, to do like a sweet mix in, maybe chocolate chips would be a better choice or something like that. They suggested coconut as well. I like this one because you can kind of mix up the flavors a lot and customize it to your wants, your needs, you know, what your guests are going to enjoy. Cheese Balls was published in 2018, and it promises 40 celebratory cheese-licious recipes. I picked this up secondhand at the Strand in New York City. I was like, it's not a vintage cookbook, but it certainly is, you know, a vintage treat, I would say, a vintage party food. Now, an article that I read said that cheese balls were falling out of fashion by the 1980s. Maybe they were, but like I grew up in the Midwest. I was born in the 80s. We definitely had cheese balls. I remember the early 2000s seeing them kind of make a little bit of a comeback. There was a magazine that I missed so much, and it was called Budget Living. And I remember a particular article in that magazine, I don't know the exact year, that had a party menu, and I believe there was a cheese ball. It was like a vintage Christmas party menu that you could throw on a budget, and I think there was a cheese ball in there. The other place I remember seeing them is this book by Amy Sedaris. It's called I Like You by Amy Sedaris, Hospitality Under the Influence. I love Amy Sedaris. I think she's very funny. And in fact, I actually saw her. I actually saw her on the street during the trip to New York City where I got this cheese balls book. I didn't say anything. Like, I don't want to be that person. She was walking. She was trying to get somewhere, obviously, but I was sending her like mental messages that I thought, you know, I loved her work, and she was very funny. But yeah, she has cheese balls in this book, a couple cheese ball recipes. Not only can you serve cheese balls at any party, really, it doesn't have to be a holiday party, but I specifically associate them with holiday parties. They also make really great gifts. Like, you could make, you know, if you have a famous cheese ball, a famous delicious cheese ball recipe, you can make a whole bunch of them and like distribute them to your friends and neighbors. Let them appreciate how delicious they are. I happen to remember a coworker of mine making a cheese ball that had pineapple in it one year, and it was absolutely delicious. I love cheese and pineapple together, so I need to seek out that recipe for sure. This book has 40 different cheese ball recipes, but it also has a section on shaping them. As far as shapes go, like I did a classic cheese ball shape, I did a log, and then I did little mini balls. You can shape them into other things too. I've done a pumpkin cheese ball. This actually gives instructions on how to make an owl shaped cheese ball. Maybe that would be good for Halloween. A hedgehog. I've seen like a pine cone. I think there's like a vintage magazine ad floating around with like the cheese ball pine cone where you put sliced almonds in to make the little pine cone shape. So there's a lot of fun things that you can do with them. Oh, I found my bookmark from the Strand that they put in here when I bought the book. You can customize your cheese ball according to the different flavors that you like, your guests like. If you're having a theme or something, like there's a lot that you can do. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about the recipes I chose from this book. So I started things off with a bacon and ranch cheese ball. Now this, I believe, is probably the closest to the like classic cheese ball recipe flavors that I'm used to. The dried beef and like green onion cheese ball is a very popular one. I like a cheese ball with a smoky flavor. This definitely delivered because between the bacon and the smoked Gouda, you got that like very savory, smoky taste in there. A suggestion that's given here, if you want to make this cheese ball vegetarian, it says replace the outer layer of bacon with something else that's salty and crispy, like lightly crushed store-bought fried onions. I've never thought of using the French fried onions on a cheese ball, but wow, I think that would make an extra delicious coating. I made this recipe completely as is. I didn't make any adjustments or any extra seasonings or anything like that. It had exactly the flavor that I wanted. The second recipe I decided to try was a spinach and artichoke mini cheese ball, particularly because I love spinach and artichoke dip. I think I remember the first time I had it, really. I was about 13 or 14 years old and I was at Connie's Pizza in Chicago and they had spinach and artichoke dip on the menu and we ordered it. And it was like, holy cow, this is just like a brand new thing in my life that will be here for a long time. It was spinachy and creamy and had a lot of garlic in it. Absolutely delicious. Just to read a little bit out of the book here, it says, arguably the best dip at any party. The magical combination of spinach, artichoke, sour cream, and cheese only gets better in cheese ball form. These mini cheese balls are best served at room temperature, but they can also be warmed up on a low heat in the oven for a couple of minutes. So I didn't read that little part before, but you can apparently warm these up a little bit. That's kind of a different thing. These were very, very garlicky, partly due to the fact that not only did it have 3 cloves of garlic in it, I added some garlic salt to this. It did, to me anyway, need a little bit of salt. And I thought, why not go extra, extra garlicky? That's something I enjoy, and I'll use garlic salt. And then I also added a little bit of herbs to the outer breadcrumb coating. Not in the original recipe, but just something that I feel that it needed. And it worked out really well. I thought this tasted just delicious. So the seasoning, a good call. Do the kind of seasoning that you prefer, that you like, but I think it does need it. I liked that this had sort of a different type of coating on the outside too, the breadcrumb coating, not really something that I had thought of doing. You do, I think, want to do that a little bit at the last minute. You can form the individual balls like ahead of time, but I would say roll those in the toasted breadcrumbs not too long before you're going to serve them. I had a few that I had totally coated in the breadcrumbs, not a lot, that I popped in the fridge and then ate the next day. The breadcrumbs do tend to soften a little bit. They're still delicious, but if you want that like kind of crisp and toastiness to those crumbs, definitely wait until the last minute. And then finally, the trail mix cheese ball. I decided to roll this into a log. And I would say this wasn't like super sweet. It was just like a good balance of the sweetness of the dried fruit and the creaminess of the cheese and that touch of honey. Oh my gosh. Another good thing that I think I might try adding to this in the future is cinnamon, because I love cinnamon and I think it would really work in there. The toasted pecans were like the perfect outer coating for this. They really complemented that dried fruit. I have a lot of this left over. I gave some away. But once the cheese log kind of firmed up a little bit, I found that you could really easily cut it into slices. So if you don't want to serve it like whole, maybe you want to cut some of that into individual round slices. So a word about the granola, it was nowhere to be found. And I kind of thought that would happen. I mixed in just a 1/4 cup of cinnamon granola. I had originally thought maybe chocolate chips. One of the things I didn't want to happen with the chocolate chips is like a disruption in the texture. So you get the creaminess from the cheese and you get a little bit of chew, just a tiny bit from that dried fruit. And I thought like mini chocolate chips might be a little hard, especially if the cheese ball is cold. Candied ginger is another one that I would love to try. That was a suggestion. But I would skip doing like the granola or the Chex as it was suggested in the recipe because they just kind of like absorb. Like it's not unpleasant. I'm not finding weird soggy bits of granola. I'm just not finding them at all. They just kind of like become one with the cheese. So I hope this video brought cheese balls to the top of your mind. If you're having a holiday party this season, maybe it's something that you can kind of bring back an old family recipe for a cheese ball, try one of these, or make one of your own. I'd like to say a special thank you to my Patreon supporters. If you'd like to join us over there, I'll have a link in the description so that you can do that. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I post videos about food, vintage cookbooks, and retro recipes every week. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.